soft day to cry from the bottomless pit, but my end was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? Is all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery.
This is from my classroom. I have a full class set of these, so my objective in doing this project was to finally take them out of the closet, and they've been there since I got to the school. So I wanted to take them out and familiarize myself with it so that I can use them in class. And in practicing this, I discovered it is a lot more complicated to play just a single melody line than I had anticipated. I'll leave it set up, so if you would like to, you're welcome to come just think a melody in your head and try to play it and see for yourself that it challenges you a little bit because you're seeing the notes in a different perspective than you're used to. The letter names are on it. This instrument is traditionally taught by letter name. So there isn't, like Alyssa's instrument, there isn't notation for the instrument. It's taught by calling out the letter names and adding rhythm to that. So steel drums, also called steel pans, because there is also that, is it a percussion instrument, is it a melodic instrument, so we can call them steel drums or steel pans. They originated in Tobago, or Trinidad and Tobago. They came to be because after World War II, the British forces left these huge 55-gallon oil bins on the shores. And the oil bins were kind of cut in half, and the metal was used as dustpans for people's homes. And they ended up being incorporated into these very notorious street carnivals where people use pots and pans, bakery ware as instruments in these street carnivals. So suddenly they have these dustpans in their house, and the dustpans started to be used in those carnivals, street festivals, and developed into the modern steel pan. So it was discovered that if different dents are made in the pan, different pitches can be created, and then that was honed, and now there's a very specific fine tuning technique and like a specific kind of metal that's used for this instrument. So it's a modern instrument. It was not developed until the 20th century, which I think is interesting and makes it important to incorporate into an educational setting. The bulges in the metal range from 8 bulges to 32 bulges. This one is a G, has the notes of a G major scale. So I was limited. Thank goodness Bob Marley's Redemption songs in the key of G. That was just like a miracle. Elliot Nanette was the person who modified the design of the drum to be its traditional form, the concave, and then the dents being convex within the concave dome shape. The dents are made by a process of hammering and then heating and then hammering and heating. I do have, I'm not going to bother showing it, but I do have a video clip in here of an American, someone tuning one with a hammer and stuff. It's kind of interesting to see all the equipment used in that process. So part of what makes this challenging to play is that the notes are not linear. So we're so used to playing instruments where like, okay, this direction is low, this direction is high, this direction. But when you're on this instrument, your mind plays tricks with you because you have just the natural instinct to move your hand one way and it's not going to play the note that you are anticipating. This also goes in the direction of a circle, but opposites. So. Might be more applicable for like middle school, high school aged students. I'm kind of thinking of ideas I could use this with 5th grade. So the educational application, I'll leave this screen up. I'm kind of envisioning using, maybe taking them out for younger kids as like an instrument exploration type thing, or just listening, what does this sound make you think about? Great for improvisation because it doesn't take much motor skill to be able to produce a sound on it. But when we get into 4th and 5th grade and all the way through 12th grade, I imagine that this would be a good tool to use if you are teaching a unit on chord tones. And the reason I performed in this fashion, along with the recording, was to show you how the way that the notes are arranged leaves very little room for error if you're kind of doing a rhythmic improvisation along with a simple chord progression. Because the 1 also can double as your minor 6. You know, so a lesson teaching scale tones would be I'd have these are the notes in a G major chord, these are the notes in blah blah blah, these are the notes in blah blah blah. Form teams, you're responsible for the G major chord, you're responsible for the 1 chord, you're responsible for the 5 chord, you're responsible for the 4 chord. And then based on the ability level of the students, you could have them choose 1 note and improv on that note, have some notation in front of them, maybe like stem notation that just indicates the chord that they're playing. So you could have students choose 1 note, just jam out on that 1 note rhythmically when it's time for that chord, and so on. Did that make sense? Yes. Okay. I also, in the blog posts, put the link for the company that made this particular model. They did work in collaboration with a professional steel drum group in Trinidad to ensure that the metal was authentic. It is an Americanized version of the instrument, which I felt a little like I was tiptoeing around territory of being culturally appropriative. But they worked in collaboration with these people in Trinidad to make sure the metal was authentic, and that the benefit would be worth the Americanizing of the instrument. They also asked, there's a little book that comes with it that I forgot, but they asked permission to transcribe the pieces that they had heard in Trinidad because, as I said, it's not an instrument that we follow notation for. And then I see a lot of cultural value in incorporating this into an educational setting. And I was thinking the same thing when Alyssa was giving her presentation. I think as music teachers, we're a little scared to dive into this territory of more modern, non-Western instruments, but there's so much educational value in this and Alyssa's hang drum. And then one of the major reasons I got this out was because the neighborhood, I mentioned this before, the neighborhood that I teach in is primarily a Caribbean population, and a lot of parents, when they're talking to me about music, what they learned in school and music class, they tell me about the ensembles that they were in playing the steel drums when they lived in Jamaica or Trinidad. So I thought this would be a nice way to kind of start a conversation about music between families and their children. And that is my presentation.